listening to Real Coaching Radio TV, building a positive network.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Kids Talk Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing youth advocacy, television programming, and training services in the United States, along with comprehensive medical and educational services for the developing world, most recently in Kenya, Africa, where Kids Talk Foundation provides a feeding program, medical care, and educational services to over 1,300 young people each day. Please help our youth and place your donation. Go to www.kidstalk.org. Are you in the entertainment industry? If you answered yes and you want to promote yourself, your passion, and profession, check out Creative Independent Artist magazines at CIAartists.com. Endorsed by Kids Talk Foundation worldwide. You can hear shows from Real Coaching Radio TV network while on the go with Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher is a free news and talk mobile app available for your smartphones, smart TVs, and cars. And when you download Stitcher to hear shows from Real Coaching Radio TV network, you have a chance to win some money. Downloading is quick and easy. Just find Stitcher in the App Store. Download it. It's free and just takes a few seconds. Then, during registration, hit the promo code box and enter RCRN to get automatically entered to win $100. The latest episode of the shows will be waiting for you in your favorites. You'll get access to lots of other amazing shows too, always available to you on demand. No syncing. It's Stitcher Smart Radio. Don't forget to enter promo code RCRN when you register at www.stitcher.com/RCRN.
Hey, hello, welcome again. My name is Lo Wai Chan. Thank you for dropping by. The show is Your Money and Your Mindset. I'd like to say hello to all our viewers out there who week in, week out, loyal viewers. Tune in for some inspiration, for some education, and also for some insight into how you can create your own wealth. Remember, it's nothing to do with your education or where you were brought up, but more what goes on between your ears, your mindset. So welcome everybody. Stick on Blog TV, Real Coaching Radio TV Radio Network, Receiver Internet Radio, Radio Roku, New Media Radio TV, and our partner Stitcher. You're probably watching this on your iPhone or your Android phone. Well, pay attention, take notice, because today is going to be a real doozy. I'm going to basically bring on a guest who has got the inside running when it comes to working out what makes successful property investors as opposed to the ones who just seem to burn through their cash, okay? So remember, it is not just about the money, it is about your relationships, your ability to form lasting relationships with the people around you, having the good health to enjoy it all. And every little bit helps, right? Every little bit helps. A couple of weeks in running, I've been talking about, or talking to you about Forex, stock market, equities. And now let's turn towards property investing, because it's something that a lot of people will know about, are familiar with, probably know people in their social group or in their family who are property investors. And now you're probably thinking, hey, do you think it's time for me to do something similar? Well, I'll say yes. Okay, because I brought along a guest today who is the expert when it comes to this, and her name is Judy Harrow of Judy Harrow Property Management. So welcome, Judy. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Thank you.
Now, so Judy is kind of got the smarts on this because Judy's been in the game for a long time, and she obviously does it not just because it's a job, but it's a passion of hers. So trust people who are passionate about what they do and who have been in the game for that long and obviously know that kind of works. So not only will Judy be sharing with us what she considers to be the vital characteristics of successful property investors, but more the point, she's going to share with you 7 questions you ought to ask the person you want to look after your property for you, who will care for it like it was their own, and will make sure that you have happy experience with the whole idea of becoming a property investor. Remember, a lot of people will try it once, then through circumstances, some within and not without their control, tend to say, look, it's not for me. Really don't give up, because Judy has got the smarts on that. So welcome, Judy, again. And you're going to tell us about yourself, aren't you? So
I certainly am.
yeah, we know that you are a property manager, right? But before that, what were you?
Basically, I've been in real estate for about 15 years. It's something that's probably in my blood. I started off in the sales side of life.
Yep.
And decided that wasn't for me. With my circumstances, I had 2 young children. I needed to have my weekends free at that stage, so I couldn't do the selling side. So I went down the property management side, and I've been doing it ever since. One thing that is my passion, I love business development side of real estate, that is building up rent rolls, working with the investors and the landlords to start off on the right foot, building that core relationship with them, and then just moving on from there.
Okay. So basically real estate is like another form of a vehicle for creating wealth. And I truly believe that, and you too, because you have seen people start with zip, and yet by doing the right things and the right sequence and the right time, they have become financially independent.
Yes. Absolutely, without question.
Okay, so people out there, some people are skeptical that they think it's a massive rip-off, or they think it's okay for somebody else, but it will never work for me. So how do you help somebody who's interested and has a bit of spare cash, or are savers and want more than just the pension when it's all over, folks? You want a big life when you finish work, not a little life. So how do you go about helping somebody like that?
I think they have to look at the areas where the market is going to give a very good return. Weigh up whether you want to buy something established, whether you want to buy a property that you want to renovate yourself and put some cash into to make it a more viable situation in the market. Really not quite.
If that's the case, you can have 2 people walk into your business, and both are people who've got properties, yet one person will struggle and the other person will just seem to, everything they touch works. What's the difference? That's what I want to know.
Mindset. I really think a lot of that is mindset. I think that there's really a couple of different landlords out there. I think there's the ones that think that they own this property, it's their retirement fund, it's just going to instantly bring them money at the end. There's the other one who's a little bit smarter, who really wants to maintain that property, maintain the tenant, make sure it's a home and not a house, and nurture it through so that at the end there is still a nice footing and an attractive sale, which is going to be their retirement.
Okay, so you have ones with dollars in the eyes, which is fair enough, by the way. I'm not saying that it's knocking it. But the other one has got a longer term vision, and it sounds to me what you're saying is that they are a lot smarter in terms of adding value, and the value doesn't necessarily mean a new bathroom or a new kitchen. It means, like you say, turn a house into a home.
It's maintaining that property, making it attractive and viable, and picking in the right areas, looking after your tenants. You can own 50 properties, but if they're all empty, there's no income. So it's choosing the right tenant to go into your property and looking after that tenant and making sure your property manager looks after the tenant as well.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate. A lot of people around the barbecue, okay, this is the barbecue talk, would say, I know somebody who knew somebody who had the tenants from hell. Okay, and that, they would do all sorts of terrible things to the property. And do these people just pop out of nowhere? How did it get to that stage is what I want to know from you as a seasoned property manager.
Okay, probably not going to like my answer to this one.
No, tell me. Don't sugarcoat because I think you people out there, you need to hear this, because then you go in and making informed choices.
Absolutely. Okay. My answer to that one, a lot of people think they can save money. A lot of landlords think they can save money by looking after their own properties.
Yeah.
They don't understand the law. They don't understand when breach forms have to be put out to tenants, when they should be inspecting the property, how they should be collecting rent, and what's the right thing to do. So I think that when you have the situation where those people look after the property, and it's not always bad, but often it is, you do end up with a lot of evictions, a lot of homes that aren't looked after, disgruntled tenants, and a lot of property damage. Whereas if you go through an agent, and I would love to think that 9 out of 10 agents would be reasonable at what they do, you have a better chance of having your inspections done, your rental arrears looked at, any maintenance looked at as well, because that's the nurturing of that property, and just making sure that everything's run properly.
Okay, so there has to be, first and foremost, as the property manager, I take it you're almost like the meat in the sandwich, because and you almost have to be a psychologist to sort of, smooth the waters when the feathers are ruffled from either the tenant or the property investor, the landlord, and sometimes it goes back and forth. I mean, how do you do that? How do you manage these situations?
I think keep it real and just keep calm. I think probably because I'm that little bit more mature age, that you learn out of life experience that just how to calm a situation. There's never a reason to lose your cool. I think you lose your credibility when you do that. I think there's always a way to sort something out. So I always try the nice way first.
Before you send the bailiffs around.
Oh, that's it. Absolutely. But yeah, a lot of things happen for a reason, and they're not often what you see in front of you. A tenant could come into my office ranting and raving, but he could be ranting and raving to me over something completely different to what is the real problem in his life. It could be that he just ran over his cat or something. It might not be that I sent him a letter and I was cross-setting or something. So there's often different reasons for people for acting differently.
Okay.
Keep calm.
Keep calm is the thing. So like you almost have to become totally, in a sense, unattached emotionally to the whole thing. Now, that subject of emotions, funnily enough, comes up with investing. A lot of people like to think they're investing based on numbers and they're crunching the numbers. But at the end of the day, pick me up if I'm wrong, folks, but I think I'm right on this. A lot of decisions are based on emotions, and it's subconsciously arrived at. So even the person won't know that they've decided, because they like the street or something about it, but it can be a property that's not suitable for tenants. It's because they want to live in it, which is a different ballgame, isn't it?
Absolutely, for sure. I think that for me personally, the criteria for looking at an investment property, I have something in my head all the time. I always think that in the area that we are in here, in the southern area of Adelaide, that we lack 4-bedroom homes with 2 bathrooms. People now, because of the price of the rental property that they are paying, it's quite high. They expect air conditioning, built-in roads, carports, and all the things that open and close in their rental property. So you have to look for those things. Try to keep the emotion out. I know it's real. I do that myself. But you really have to try and step back and just see what the needs of that certain area are and what type of tenant will be attracted to the area, say, that I'm in now. And it's a family area. So they need homes with 2 living areas and 4 bedrooms and air conditioning and things that are going to attract a long-term tenant. A good one. You don't want tenants moving in and out every 6 months. You want someone who's going to settle. Their children will go to the local schools and play the local football. So they want to make it a home. So it's not that house, that home thing that we're looking at. That's what you need to look at.
Oh, definitely. All right, so if this resonates with you folks, and if you've got questions, write in, Skype in, chat in, type in. So you out there on Stickerman and Blog TV, Real Coaching Radio TV, you know the answer, you know how to get to us. So yeah, any questions for Judy while you want to pick her brain, she's on air, please do. Now I'm going to take this slightly away from being Australia-centric or Adelaide-centric and say, let's talk about what's going on in the States, because a lot of our viewers are in America. And as you know, there was that horrible situation where the subprime mortgage debacle caused a lot of people to just walk away because they couldn't pay their mortgages, which is not good. But by the same token, if somebody had the cash and was sitting on the sidelines waiting to invest and actually considered it, what are the sort of, I guess, pitfalls and what are the pointers they have to look out for in terms of buying these properties, which are, pennies to the dollar, literally pennies to the dollar, and these are good homes, they're not trashed, ghettos, they're beautiful homes, that they would need to look at and consider before doing their sums and getting into becoming a property investor. So can you just share something with us for the American market?
What I would say is just that make sure that you're buying where there are the needs. When I was saying about pick the right type of properties that are going to be good for tenants to move into. Make sure that they are very well maintained homes and that you can afford it. It's fine to go out and buy 20 properties for a small amount of money, but it's maintaining those properties as well. Can you afford to maintain them? Things do go wrong all the time. We know that. We're both landlords. So it's a matter of having the funds there to back up when things just don't go quite as planned, I think is the main thing.
Okay, that's very general. Can you sort of let's say, for the sake of the American market, something that's $200,000, that's, I guess, like you say, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. What sort of buffer in terms of dollars or percentages should they be having for each property?
I would like to think there would be just stored away in a bank for a day when something's going to go wrong. I think there should be at least $2,000 to $5,000 put aside.
Per property?
Per property, yes. And we're talking about now the American market. Our market over here has also just gone through something really sad as well, with all of our property prices going down in the last year over here. I've also, in my own rent roll, experienced landlords who have just had their properties go bankrupt. So if they had that buffer, if they had probably chosen to purchase when the market was a little bit different, if they'd maintained that property, I don't think they would be where they are right now. So it was, I think you just have to do a little bit of homework for the area that you're looking at and make sure you can afford to be an investor.
Okay. So if somebody wanted a bit more information that's not as general, would you be able to help them if we sort of said you can contact Judy at? Would you be happy for that?
I am fine, absolutely.
Okay, so what's your email address, just in case somebody wants to talk to you? And folks, just remember, just because we're in Australia, these are common, I think, common characteristics applicable worldwide, okay? So pen and paper, and your email addresses?
Is Judy at judyharrow.com.au.
So Judy at JUDYHARROW.com.au. Okay, so this is where Judy Harrow is. And this lady knows what she's talking about. So if she can help you, if anybody can help you, it would be Judy, because I think you've seen the whole spectrum of tenants from good to disastrous, and property landlords from very switched on to totally clueless, right, and everything in between, and you're the person who's trying to fix things up between them.
Okay. Absolutely.
Okay, just for entertainment's sake, could you just talk about one of those occasions where you walked into, let's say, a property and it's like your jaw just dropped?
There's probably been a few over the years. I think with me, now starting off my rent roll, I seem to take on properties that need a hug, is a nice way to put it. Often a landlord has got to the end of their tether, they can't stand it anymore, they just want to throw the property at me and say, please sort this out, please get rid of this tenant and let's start fresh. But over the years I have seen some horrible things that I've taken over from other agents or private landlords, gang-related. Poor dogs being locked in properties for a fortnight without food and water, and you can imagine the disgrace inside that home of that poor dog. Just tenants going on rampages in properties and the way they've left things. And it was all fixable, and it should never have happened. It's tenant selection, it's doing inspections, and it's just talking to people.
Okay, so communication is important. Yeah, okay. And rather than have a landlord work out much later that the rent hasn't been paid, and where supposedly they, have somebody professional look after it. So you're talking about making sure that the communication is clear between the tenant and you and the landlord.
Absolutely, yeah. It's something that, it's one of the things I would like to say I do well, is communicate with my landlord and my tenants. We have a good relationship. It's worked out from the beginning. This is, in a sense, a business, but it's also, I treat this as, this is my life thing. This is what I'm going to do till I retire. So I need to know that the people who live in my properties and who own my properties, we're all on the same page. And I think when you sign a tenant up, it's the perfect time to set out what you require. And same for the landlords. And it's not just tenants that have faults. Landlords have faults as well. Some of them cause more grief than tenants. For the simple fact that they make promises that they're going to look after the place and maintain that property, but when push comes to shove, they don't do it. They don't repair leaking taps or broken pipes or whatever the case may be, which then makes the tenant very upset. And then you end up with me in the middle with an upset tenant because things aren't looked after, and a landlord who just doesn't want to know about it.
All right, so how do you actually manage the landlord then? I mean, okay, you have, like I said, the whole gamut of landlords as well, the ones who come in pretty, who don't make a point of educating themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And how do you help them out? Because at the end of the day, they are the ones who have to pay the bank, assuming that they borrowed money to buy a property, right? So how do you help them? How do you save them from themselves?
That's a communication thing as well.
Yeah.
One thing I think as being a property manager is honesty, where you have to tell people the good, the bad and the ugly, whether they want to hear it or not. It's something that has to be said. There's no use me going to an inspection and seeing something really terrible and then going, oh my God, I shouldn't tell the landlord that's terrible. They're not going to like me or something like that. You just have to say it the way it is. If you step back, it's bricks and mortar. It's there to make them wealth and for their retirement or their super fund. It needs to be working, and you need to just let them know whether the place was amazing, it's like a show home, or I've got to go back again in 28 days and re-inspect the property because of it being so bad. Yeah. So you just have to talk.
Okay, so for that to happen, first and foremost, do you think it's worthwhile for the landlord to have some sort of like a wealth plan written out that they follow step by step, almost like a no-brainer? And do you sit down and help them with it? It's not asking you to be a financial advisor, but the sorts of things that you talked about, and for them to not become excited about, oh, I've just got a property and now I'm going to be rich, but say, hey, listen, these are the things that have to be looked at and followed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the moment, in this area, there's a lot of development happening. People are buying older homes, putting tenants in them and subdividing either some of that block off, while the tenants are still living in that property, or they're knocking it down over time and building. That's something that I love getting involved in. I often will sit down with the owners and have a look at their plans, tell them what they can provide more to get more money per week for their property. So that might be that air conditioner or the bigger backyard or the extra bathroom, those type of things that will provide them over the years better resale down the track if they need to sell, but also that weekly income is going to be higher. So a lot of them aren't educated in knowing what is needed by tenants out there at the moment. So that's a fun part, getting involved in the development side of things.
Fantastic. So it's almost like a partnership you have with your landlords to increase their ability to generate more cash flow, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that in mind, I mean, you talked about renovations as well. So for me, renovations is like, a hammer, and I'm just going to knock down this wall, and it's like watching paint dry for me. Yet you get people who get excited about it. So how do you actually get in there with them to redraw plans and say, look, this is you could get X number of more money, more bang for your buck in that. So do you have people you send them to in terms of like architects, planners, that sort of thing?
I think with the years in real estate, you pick up a lot of people who you know are very good at what they do, and that honest. Can be and honest. And believe me, there's some that aren't, but I personally have a handful of people that I use and recommend because I often try them in my own property to make sure they're going to be nice, on time, clean up after themselves. The payment amount is a reasonable amount as well. So don't be scared to use your tradespeople on your own property first to see what they do. As far as renovating, I do that myself. I've done that for about 5 or 6 properties now, where I've bought an inferior property and over time made it into a very presentable property and either rented that out or sold that property on. So you learn to do a lot of funny trades, and that could be I can plaster and build carports and tile and do all those things like a man. I'm good at that.
Hey, hang on a second. You hold up your nails. This is a lady who does all that, and she's got nice nails.
But it's a lot of fun, and it's very rewarding. I think not only just seeing a home change from being something sad into something happy, but also the wealth that comes from it as well, and also what you learn to do, and you learn patience.
And you learn about yourself, right?
Exactly. That's the patience bit. But yeah, lots of fun.
Okay. Because that's something else I want to ask you. Do you find that the landlords who start with one property and grow their wealth amazingly over time, they're not the same person who turned up at your office on day one, as opposed to 10 years down the track when they quite happily can retire, right? Based on what they have generated through increased wealth or capital growth in their properties. That's something I want to talk to you about. As in, what do you see as the changes of these people over time?
I think a lot of them they're quite educated in how they can use the equity in their homes now, which is something that I didn't hear about 10 years ago. So I think that...
Why is that?
I really don't know. I don't know whether it's because as superannuation over here had that big fall and a lot of people lost so much money, people went out and tried to find different ways they could use wealth. A lot of families now use their home to help their children buy property, or the children stay at home longer and use their money to buy their own wealth and live with mum and dad and use their money. But there's so many different ways now. I think banks are also educating us more. The brokers out there are quite good now with coming out and talking to us, where years ago that didn't happen as much. So it's just education.
Like with the banks years ago, I think you had to wear a suit and tie and know that you had to have 20% deposit before they would even look at you and let alone lend you money. Absolutely. But nowadays, do you find that on the plus side, yes, there's more flexibility, but on the negative side, some of these lending practices can be a bit, I guess, they cross the line?
Yes.
Okay, that's the truth. So for people out there who are thinking about this and want to get into property, but are just on the borderline, would you suggest, it's a personal opinion, not a professional one, suggest that they hang off first or go for it?
hang on. Where we were talking before about having the ability to have that buffer to maintain that property, if you're sitting on the line, all it's going to take is for, if there's two people involved, for one of them to lose their job or to have a baby or something happen in life, and they can't afford to maintain that property. And that's sad. That's sad for the tenant.
I think it's sad for everybody.
Well, it is sad for them, but there are life lessons. But I really think that you have to be in control of your money and in control of what you're going to do with your money. And you need that buffer. That's all I can say. I really think if you can't afford it, don't do it. Wait until you can.
All right. So there's a sense of, how people want it now, the impatience factor. Do you see a lot of that in your line of work?
Yeah, in life, but in my line of work as well. It's that want and need thing. A lot of people are investing at the moment, and a young couple might see their friends going out and getting one or two properties, and they want to do the same. But it's baby steps all the time, I think.
Okay, so the people who persevered and taken baby steps doesn't mean that they haven't encountered challenges, tenants who've crashed the place, unfortunately, or all sorts of things. Do you find that these people, even though they have these setbacks, they keep coming back, as in pick themselves up and continue on the path that they said they were going to?
You do see that. I would like to think that they would have learnt a little bit along the way. So when they've fallen down, they've learnt a little bit and they get back up there a little bit wiser.
So the ones that actually do go on to become very successful actually take on board what's happened.
Yeah.
But what you're saying also, there are people who don't quite get it and keep doing the same thing.
There are people like that. I think there's always going to be people who take a big gamble financially. But I personally think that they hurt not only themselves, but others along the way with their decisions.
They're interested in the interest of their business, so you go ahead. But you actually have that extra layer of, I guess, very candid honesty and integrity, which I appreciate. That there's sometimes, perhaps, to these people who are looking to purchase the next property, that it's not a good idea now. Even though it's a loss of, it could be a potential income to you, you've turned it away because you don't think that it's going to be helpful in the long run.
It's probably going to sound funny. I always have a thing in my head that I'm never going to be a multi-millionaire, and I personally don't want to have unknown wealth. That's not what I'm about. But I think you have to do the right thing for the right reason, and just to go out and not be able to back up what you're doing with that financial buffer and looking after your home and all of that. You just need to, you need to do it. I mean, as a landlord myself, I know that what I have to do to maintain my tenant is the way I look at it. Nurture my tenant, because they are bringing my wealth, they are paying my rent, they're paying my mortgage, they're giving me my superannuation and retirement. So it's just looking after them.
Okay, I'm going to go off track for a minute and say, for some people who are very anti-landlords, do you actually come across them in just in a general conversation, or you don't move in the same circles?
In what way do you mean?
That they feel that it's exploiting, because I know some people out there would love to be landlords as property investors, but they feel that they are taking something away. In terms of not necessarily consciously, but on a subconscious level, they might feel a sense of a guilt or shame that they've, I'm taking money from these people to live in this house, which is really weird. But apparently, these things happen, and therefore they self-sabotage. They go pick tenants which are just like hopeless. So do you see that ever so often, that especially the ones who seem to come up with the weirdest properties?
No, I don't a lot, actually. Maybe I'm a little bit more specific on who I choose.
Who you choose. That's very good, because
less grey hair.
Or perhaps you sort of worked out that these are the people that you really don't want to deal with. All right. Now, let's talk about those 7, specific questions a potential investor should ask somebody that they're looking at managing their property for them? Just very quickly, what are the things that they should be looking out for in a property manager that they can trust and who's reliable and who won't pull the wool over their eyes and give them a story and a line? Because like you say, communication is key. So just fire them off the top of your head.
Okay, life experience. A lot of property managers now are very young. They start off from when they're about 18.
18.
The government at the moment is giving very cheap property management courses and real estate sales courses to the public. So you're getting a lot of kids in there who seem to think that working with property is fantastic and love the idea of going into lovely homes and seeing all these beautiful decors and everything. That's not really what it's about. It's property management is hard work, seriously hard work, long hours, phones going off 24 hours a day with maintenance, tenants complaining, landlords complaining. There's more negativity that comes through the office than what there is positives in the game. But that's what it is. So a young person at 18 who hasn't owned a home, who hasn't dealt with investors before, who hasn't dealt with angry tenants before, is going to find it really hard, even as far as doing the inspections, which is another thing that would be on my list, what they have to do. A property should be inspected every 13 weeks is my thought. Some agents think that it should be 4 monthly, but I think it takes basically 3 months to grow marijuana. I want to be in there within that time, and that sounds really funny, but you have to be smart. Check out the sheds when you go there to do an inspection, and if they're locked, they're locked. So inspect the properties. An 18-year-old, and this I'm being very vague and probably discriminating here, I'm sorry, but I have daughters that age, wouldn't probably check the oven for cleanliness or understand if eaves were dropping from the ceiling or what that would mean, or if the gutters were full. Just general maintenance issues. They're often too young to understand.
To notice.
Yes. They wouldn't understand the workings of a building or plumbing or anything like that. So that would be one. Education is very important. I think soak up as much training as you can get. Make sure that your property manager has got all the certificates that they need, that they are ongoing training. I'm obviously not a very good computer person. We were laughing about that before. But I'm certainly trained. I'm on the Real Estate Institute Committee for South Australia. And I think get yourself out there and find out everything you can. Legislations change around the world and by state all the time. You have to know the rules. I think that's simple. They're a guideline for the way you're going to manage that business. If you don't have that guideline, I think you're in trouble. What else was on my list here? Inspection staff levels. Property management, you will find that 99% of them are really overworked with the amount of properties that they look after. I personally think there should be a ratio that you have. After training for many years, I would like to think that between 80 and 100 properties is what a property manager can cope with personally.
And do it well.
Yes. And I would expect someone doing those amount of properties would be, at the end of the day, not having an email unanswered and should be able to return all their calls. Don't overburden your property manager, because then things like maintenance that comes in is not going to be done properly or not cared for. You'll find that inspections that they're doing every 13 weeks might be 5 minutes instead of 20 or 30 minutes that they should be looking around that property because they're in a hurry. So take care. Check out the size of the rent roll, how many staff, what their holidays are, how many holidays they take a year, are they getting a break? People that own their own businesses might not be taking enough time off to rejuvenate themselves, to have the energy to keep going and maintaining service levels. So ask lots of random questions to them, I would say. Yeah, rental arrears. How often do you check rental arrears? To me, daily. No excuses. Come in the morning, do your banking, rental arrears. You need to put these forms into the tenancies branch on certain days. when rental arrears aren't paid, if you're not checking them, those days could go over, which means that your landlord insurance policy might not be even worthwhile. Check all of that out.
That's
really for rent arrears. Yeah, but the main thing I must say is just experience.
So
check out experience.
It's almost like you're sitting them down for an interview almost, isn't it?
Oh gosh, yes. And a lot of people do that now. I get a lot of overseas and interstate people because we have a lot of investors from Sydney, Perth, and everything buying in our area. And they really send me through probably about 25 questions on why I am different, what makes me stand out more so than the person across the road. That they expect that now.
So these are probably the what you call savvy property investors who are switched on and not the I'm just turning up, this is my first property, giggle, I'm so excited. Yeah? So they obviously have done the hard yards, and they would have probably experienced the whole gamut of property managers, from wonderful, terrific to they just collect the rent and whatever kind of attitude they've got. Yeah, so they come to you with, like you say, armed with 25 questions for you already.
There's a lot of investor seminars out there now, and I find that a lot of the people that are actually inquiring about property management over the internet have been to a few of those seminars. So they're armed with the questions. And I think it's fantastic.
You'd rather deal with those people, wouldn't you?
I would deal with anyone,
yeah.
But I'm happy for people to ask me questions. The more they ask, the more they're going to learn, the more relationship we build up, the more I find out about them and their expectations and what they will and won't do, all of that. So it's just building up a relationship.
Okay.
Questions don't hurt.
Yeah, questions don't hurt. And so people out there, if you're thinking about, getting first of all, investing in property, because at the end of the day, I still think that there is a place for property to be part and parcel of your wealth creation strategy. Not knocking the other stuff like equities, shares, and that sort of a thing, but they're horses for courses, and finding out what is your risk tolerance level as well, isn't it? And some people get very agitated that they've seen the value of their property drop, and some people go, it's just part of the cycle.
And it is.
Yeah. So what sort of time frames are you looking at for cycles in terms of ups and downs?
We've just experienced one, and we're now just on the up, thank goodness. Probably the sad thing about when the market and property prices go down, it's great for my business. So there is the upside to that. When people's properties need to be sold, it becomes a buyer's market. Buyer's market buys investment properties. So perfect. I've had an amazing year. So yeah, it's probably a little bit sad out of people's despair that I've done well. But I would say it's probably over the last 5 years, I think it started to dip down a little bit, especially in the last 2 in this area that we're in here. But it's nice to see it go back up. You find that the whole atmosphere and people's personalities in the area and everything changes once the sale goes up. The whole attitude changes, and it's lovely.
Okay, and then it sort of attracts more people into the area because there's a good vibe about it.
There certainly is, absolutely.
Wow, that's very interesting. That in fact you can, and you would have basically you are managing properties right across Adelaide, metropolitan Adelaide, and you would get a sense of that depending on which suburb you go to.
Yes.
Okay. So for people out there, just realize that, when you're buying property, it's not just buying a house and saying, I want to put a tenant in there. Like you said, you have to do your homework and work out which suburbs are growing and which suburbs aren't. And is it true that sometimes even within a suburb, there's sub little areas where they're doing better than others?
Yes. And there's always good and bad streets to a suburb. You need to check that out.
What's the definition of a good versus bad street?
Okay, good and a bad street. I think just drive up and down a few of them and have a look. If you see a for sale sign, this beautiful little house, check the neighbours out and see what they're like. Don't be afraid to ask the neighbours what the suburb and the street's like. make sure that you've got nice local schools around and that there's not a lot of graffiti and all those type of things. Just have a general look, and it's one of those technology things now you can get on there and check out Google Maps. It's one of those things that you can actually do, but ask a lot of questions. But yeah, good and bad streets for sure.
Yeah, because like you say, I didn't quite understand why you were looking at inspecting every 13 weeks, but now that you've mentioned that people grow dope, some of these
they do a lot of things, but I think it's also the tenants expect that I'm going to be there every 13 weeks, and there is no negotiation. That is the way it is. Whether they're home or they're not home, I will be there to have a look through the property. I'm not being nosy and going through the cupboards, I wouldn't do that, but I want to make sure that my home is maintained and it's nice and clean and there's no property damage, and the people who say they are living in the home, if they're living in there, and that there's no extras. And if you've said no pets, I don't want to see 3 Rottweiler dogs in the backyard. So it's just keeping control.
Okay. And also, is it more a case of, prevention is better than cure, in the sense that if you set out the rules and regs and you're very clear up front, there won't be so many tears at the other end?
Absolutely, yes. And you find by being honest to your tenants when you sign them up, they are going to do the right thing. I give my tenants a gift. They are welcome. You know? They are my wealth, as I said. So my tenants get a welcome gift. I sit down and I explain every little thing, even as far as putting books on the wall, because all of those things is respect. So, and we have a great relationship. The tenants, landlords, so far so good. I'm not naive, but so far so good.
Okay, so that's very important. You're talking about something that's quite intangible, and that's the human nature, and fundamentally you're saying that people just want to be treated like human beings with some degree of respect and consideration, really.
Because you're a tenant doesn't make you any different than anyone else. I'm a tenant at the moment, and I'm a property owner. So, and my property manager treats me with respect. And I think that it's not hard to do that.
No.
It's very easy.
So for people who think that you have to be hard-nosed and not very nice, this is just, I hope that's just dispel that particular belief, which is very negative, that you can be a considerate landlord, you can be a considerate property investor, you can attract good tenants, you can have a good relationship with them, and it's a virtuous cycle where it's a win-win. So you've given them a roof over their head at a reasonable price for weekly rent, and also it's growing your wealth. And those people, like I say, aren't there because you force them to go live in your house, right? They have come of their own fruition. Yeah.
But I'm not naive as well. If I need to get grumpy, I do. I do know the law, and I have no trouble with going to the tribunal if I need to. So there's the soft side and the reasonable side and all of that. But I am looking after people's future. So, and every property is worth a lot of money. So you have to keep that in the back of your mind as well. So, but yes, I can. If I need to get grumpy, I have to do something. I don't like to. Try not to.
Yeah, try not to, but yeah, if somebody crosses the line, yeah, you would do that.
There's ways to do it. Like, you need to follow the rules and just get it done.
Okay. So these are equally applicable in Australia as they are in America, I would say, that, these are the sort of 7 things you've got to ask people who are you're vetting to become your property manager, especially nowadays when you don't necessarily live in the same town as your investment property. So this long distance thing, for me, it says I have to trust that person.
You do. And one thing I think all landlords should do is once a year, minimum, either drive past your property or go to an inspection. It's the most important thing in the world to keep your property manager honest. You're up to date yourself with your property. One thing where if you've got an owner who's had the same property for 10 years and he's had the same property manager for 10 years, and he hasn't been to that property once. Over those 10 years, that property is obviously, it would have deteriorated with the carpets, the gutters, the painting, those type of things. Over time, property managers aren't going to notice those changes. Where if you go once a year, you're going to pick up on things that they just might not, because they're not seeing any, they're just seeing that same property over and over and over the whole time. They're not noticing things. So be aware of your property. Have a look. Always go and visit. I think it is a nice thing to do. For you and the property manager, you're building your relationship and you're having a look at how your investment is going as well. You might be in the situation at that time where you can do a few improvements to the property. Go out and have a look and ask the tenant, what do you need? What do you think would make this more worthwhile to stay in the property? For those good tenants. Like a reward thing for being a great tenant is, I'll put a new air conditioner in the lounge room for you next year. You know, it's adding wealth to you with resale of the property, and it's nurturing that tenant's relationship with you. Okay. And they're more keen to pay rent if you're respecting them. You know, if you're not doing anything to the property and the curtains are falling off and the floor is dirty and all of those kinds of things, they're not going to respect that home or you or the property manager. So, yeah.
That was a worthwhile tip, folks, in terms of, putting a human face to this whole process, because a lot of people like to think that the humanity side is separate from running a business. It's not, is it? It's very much part and parcel of the whole thing. And it's like, choose the right property manager, be mindful of your rights, but also be thoughtful for your tenant. Okay, right. So just once again, can you give us your email, just in case people are thinking, maybe we should be talking to Judy about this.
Okay, it is judy@judyharrow.com.au.
Okay, so judy@judyharrow.com.au, and she can help you with advice, and also if you want to take on as a property manager, I would, based on what I've heard, because there are sorts of things that most people as landlords don't have the time, and some of them don't have the inclination to be the person looking after their own property, because I think when you do that, you become emotionally involved in some of the decisions that have to be made, which are, like you say, the grumpy decisions that you have to make.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's so true. You find some landlords want to get involved with their properties, and you find some that go, oh no, Judy, I really don't want to know about anything. You just handle the whole thing. I do that to a point with those people, but one thing I will always do when I've finished an inspection, I will pick up the phone and say hello, and then they're going to get the good, bad and the ugly, because although they're saying that they don't want anything to do with it, they need to. They need to hear it, and if they are overseas and I can't phone, I'll always email them through as well. So that's that communication thing.
Okay, so communication sort of negates unpleasant surprises, if you know what I mean, folks.
It does.
It does. Yes, I can vouch for that one. All right, so in the last couple of minutes we've got with you, it's like you obviously spent 15 years in this game. You know what you're on about, and you obviously sort of do certain things in a certain way that support your business. And the fact that it's a thriving business means that you're obviously doing things right. So I like to ask people who are successful in their line of work, what is it that they do? I call them success riddles, and you probably call them, this is my to-do list. So what is it that you do in terms of keeping your business growing and forever moving forward and becoming dynamic rather than being stagnant and going backwards?
Probably my daily ritual would be in the office, do my banking, seeing who's paid rent and who hasn't is pretty important. That's how we all get paid. Straight after that, rental arrears. I'm quite happy. I'm in here about 7:38 in the morning to be checking out my rental arrears and organising my phone calls, SMSs, letters, whatever I need to do. And it's amazing how quick they reply at that time of the morning, probably because I've got them out of bed. So that's my horrible part of my day done. That during the day, the important things are answering emails as quickly as you can. They need to be done very fast. People these days don't seem to have a lot of time. We have routines which are crazy, work long hours, all of that. So telephone calls is something that's very, very important. Everyone has to be answered back before I go home. My emails are all answered before I go home. My landlords and my tenants know that if there is a problem and it's an emergency of any nature, please give me a call after hours. So it's an ongoing thing in property management, and that's where I think I'm a little bit different to other people, is that I tell them, please give me a call if there's a problem. I always say to them, I won't probably answer between 11 o'clock on a Saturday night and 7 in the morning, but other than that, give it a go and I'll try and pick the phone up. So another thing I probably do a little bit different is I do opens on the weekend to attract my homes, which is not being discriminatory again. I have lots of people who aren't families in my home, but if you do things on a weekend, you get to see the husband, the wife, the behaviour of the children, how they behave in someone else's property, the whole thing. So I do before hours work. I could do an open at 7:30 in the morning. I could do one at like last night at 6 o'clock at night, and I can do them Saturday and Sunday. So it's just whatever you need to do, what open times you need to do to reflect the current market conditions as well. This time of the year over here, it's very busy with rentals, people going in and out because all your government agencies are changing jobs. It's Christmas time, people are moving, so there's movement in property management. So you need to get onto that and grab those tenants and try and get them in your property. So you just have to just work some funny hours to do.
Oh, okay. So really, it's not a 9 to 5 for you, because otherwise it'd be a job. Like I said at the start of this interview, for Judy, I get the sense that it's a passion and something you love doing, because you can have the sort of established real estate agencies who sell you the house, then they'll say, yeah, we can collect the rent, and it sounds like it's an 18-year-old who just does that rather than put their heart and soul into it, because they haven't quite got the idea of what a superb exemplary property manager is, because they've never seen one, kind of thing.
I think one of those 7 questions should also be, if my home's been sitting there for 6 weeks, why aren't you doing opens on the weekends? And so ask them, what are their open times for showing their properties? Like if the property's vacant, when are you going to open up this property to show prospective tenants? Are you going to do them after 5 o'clock at night? Are you going to do weekend opens? If I had a property sitting for 6 weeks and they were closing their doors at 5 and not someone wanted to look at 5:15, I'd be a bit upset as a landlord that I had no rent coming in for that time. So just ask them, will they step outside the box if they need to? Will they go out of their way to get somebody through that property?
These are all sorts of things that people don't really consider when they go find themselves a property manager. But in hindsight, what you said is basically a lot of it's common sense, which is not so common by the sound of it. But also having the experience, and for some people it could be their first experience might not be the best experience, and therefore it puts them off for life from something that, if managed properly, is actually a good way of creating wealth, especially if they have low risk tolerance. People can't stand seeing the stock market going up and down on a daily basis and would stress and freak out. Would be okay, because they can go and touch their house and it's still there. It's new. It's amazing. Yeah, it's bricks and mortar. So on that note, thank you very much for spending this hour with us, because I've learned a lot from what you've said, and it's sort of given me, I guess, food for thought about how best to structure, investing in a sense, and you obviously, you don't bite, and you're very approachable, very approachable. And I highly recommend that if anybody wants to come and talk to Judy, it'll be judy@judyharrow.com.au, and that would be a great place to start. I'm sure Judy will have lots of gems for you. And also you can visit her on this website, which is
judyharrow.com.au.
Can't be any simpler than that.
It is easy.
It is easy. All right. So on that note, thank you very much, Judy, for the time you've taken.
Thank you very much.
God bless and have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Today's podcast is brought to you by ObesityHotline.com, the silent killer, providing support and encouragement in the prevention of this rising epidemic. Featuring the Body by Vi Challenge. Is there a quick answer to the question? Go to www.obesityhotline.com. You're listening to Real Coaching Radio TV, building a positive network.